You've been lied to your entire life. Everything you consider yours, your body, your mind, your emotions, even your energy, is a carefully constructed lie. Behind this illusion are systems that have kept humanity in the dark for centuries. But there's a truth they concealed. You have 4 bodies, and each one has been used to control you. The 5th body is the forbidden key, a power capable of shattering the entire game if you dare to activate it. Since your very birth, you were carefully placed within the confines of a single worldview, instilled with the belief that you are merely a body of flesh and bones, a collection of biological cells that inevitably grows, ages, and ultimately dies. This perception, however, was just a skillfully constructed facade, behind which a cunning system of total control had been hidden for centuries. You became accustomed to the idea that your thoughts belonged exclusively to you, considered your desires to be natural impulses of your own will, and perceived your emotions as an integral part of your unique personality. But in the depths of your soul, you always sensed that none of these manifestations truly belonged to you, and this feeling gave rise to a subtle yet constant inner unease. The world that you perceive as reality functions more like a complex simulation where every one of your decisions, every choice, and every reaction is prompted from the outside, creating an illusion of freedom. You have become a product of this program, which has been subtly shaping your beliefs from the very moment you first began to be self-aware, while you grew, studied, fell in love, became disappointed, hated, and made inevitable mistakes. It created for you a set of mental and emotional templates by which you automatically acted, confident that this was indeed your life, By observing this process from the outside, you could see how your authentic essence remained in the shadows, muffled by the noise of other people's voices and imposed ideals. This is precisely why the first step towards true awakening is always incredibly painful and often shocking. It is the moment when you must bravely admit that absolutely everything you have considered to be true about yourself so far was merely an artificial, meticulously constructed reality. This truth, once revealed, does not simply change your perspective on the world. It completely shatters the familiar structure of yourself, forcing you to seek a new foundation for your existence. It is as if you are waking up from a dream where you were shown a beautiful but false picture, and now you see the true contours of a ruthless reality behind it. Every time you felt an inner conflict, when your intuition suggested something different from what you were told, you encountered the first breakthrough through this illusion. You always thought that your doubts were a weakness, but in reality, they were the first rays of light breaking through the thick layer of lies. A divine spark always burned within you, but its flame was suppressed by an endless stream of information, entertainment, and social obligations that distracted you from the most important thing, the search for your true essence. The realization that your life has not been lived by you becomes a powerful catalyst for further transformation, because only in this way can you begin to rebuild your reality, but this time on the basis of your own authentic experience. Your true birth begins precisely at this moment, when you decide to no longer be a puppet in someone else's game. You believe you have free will, that every choice you make is a conscious decision reached by your own mind. But behind every idea, every belief, and every one of your emotional reactions, there have always been other people's scenarios, carefully written and initiated long before your birth. All great institutions, such as religions, governments, educational systems, as well as social and cultural norms, all of them have painstakingly created convenient and predictable templates for centuries, which the vast majority of people mindlessly follow. They don't just control you, they do it through the most subtle, almost imperceptible mechanisms, through a constant sense of fear, through an instilled sense of guilt, and through the imposition of false ideals that force you to chase unattainable goals. You have become a puppet, not even noticing the thin but strong invisible strings that run from every one of your thoughts and every one of your actions, because they are the ones who make decisions for you, and you merely carry out their will. The moment you begin to realize this terrible truth, the world around you inevitably begins to fall apart into small, meaningless pieces, like an old, tattered fabric from which the foundation has been torn. Your former beliefs lose their strength. Your usual values seem false, and your confidence in yourself and your place in this world melts away like morning fog. Doubts, which you previously considered a dangerous sign of weakness or madness, now become your most valuable ally, because it is in them that the first, unstoppable spark of freedom is born. This is the very moment when familiar answers cease to satisfy, and familiar routes lead nowhere. During this period, you begin to feel how the systems of control are trying to pull you back into the usual course, intensifying a sense of anxiety and making you doubt your own sanity. But you must understand, these doubts are not your defeat, but your greatest achievement. You must learn to observe this process from the outside, as if watching a theatrical performance in which you played the main role, but the script was written by others. You see how your thoughts are not your thoughts, but just echoes of other people's attitudes. You feel how your emotions are not your emotions, but programmed reactions to certain stimuli. This act of observation becomes your first real act of free will, because it allows you to separate yourself from the imposed role and begin to realize your true, deep nature. The path to liberation begins not with a struggle against an external enemy, but with a ruthlessly honest look inside yourself. It is there, in this bottomless inner silence, that you will find your true strength, the strength that will allow you to break these invisible strings and become the true master of your own life. Since your childhood, you've been taught to see yourself as merely a dense physical shell that can be measured with a tape measure, weighed on a scale, and attempted to be healed with a set of chemical pills. You were told that aging, diseases, wear and tear, and ultimate death are the natural and inevitable limits of your existence. This model of perception securely held your consciousness within the tight boundaries of the material world, where you were nothing more than a temporary guest, subject to all the laws of physics and biology. However, the true reality is much deeper. Your physical body is only an outer shell, a convenient, yet still a cage, intended for the deeper and more subtle levels of your true being. It is a temporary temple that was given to you for experience in this world, but you mistakenly took it for yourself. All institutions, from sports gyms to pharmaceutical corporations, are only concerned with keeping you constantly focused on this shell, turning it into a cult of external beauty, strength, and health, distracting you from your inner content. As long as you look in the mirror and, gazing into your own eyes, convince yourself, "This is me," you inevitably remain a controllable element in a vast system. You spend precious time and energy on endless attempts to improve, change, or preserve something that is by its very nature ephemeral and transient. It is at this very moment, when you begin to identify with the body, that your genuine power and will fade. But as soon as you perform an act of inner separation and begin to understand that your body is just a tool, not you yourself, but merely a conduit for your consciousness, the first layer of the artificial illusion instantly and irrevocably crumbles. This is the key, fundamental moment of awakening, when the fear of old age, illness, and inevitable death, so diligently instilled in you, finally loses its power and control over you. Suddenly, you begin to perceive your physical condition in a completely different way, not as a sentence, but as feedback from the universe. Every pain, every fatigue, every symptom of a disease ceases to be just problems requiring urgent elimination and turns into valuable signals indicating an imbalance in your subtle bodies. This shift in perception allows you to move beyond traditional notions of health and illness, as you begin to understand that the cause is not in the body, but in how you live, think, and feel. You start to treat your body with deep respect, as a sacred temple, and not as an object for endless manipulations. This new awareness gives you inner peace and true freedom because you are no longer afraid of losing something that you are not. Your mind, this most delicate and complex interface connecting your inner self with the reality you perceive, has never truly belonged to you. From the earliest childhood, it was filled with pre-made thoughts, other people's symbols, and rigid rules, like an empty vessel into which a pre-prepared solution was mercilessly poured. You were led to believe that your desires, aspirations, and even dreams were your own unique manifestations. But in reality, they were merely the result of targeted external investments. Every pattern of your behavior, every automatic reaction to certain events, was so deeply embedded that you acted according to them without even being aware of their source. You repeat phrases you heard in movies and advertisements, defend views gleaned from news headlines, and make decisions without even understanding where they truly came from. You have become a reflection of the collective mind, not its creator. This entire meticulously constructed system of control collapses like a house of cards only at the moment when you begin to observe your own thoughts as something separate from yourself. You suddenly notice that inside your head there is a continuous, chaotic stream consisting of other people's voices, other people's ideas, and other people's fears. It becomes obvious that most of this mental noise is not your genuine thought, but merely an echo of external programming. You see how the same thought can be activated by different events, how certain words cause pre-programmed emotional reactions. This realization is frightening to the core because it shatters the familiar, cozy notion of who you are. You discover that the personality you have built and defended for so long was nothing more than a beautiful but empty mask woven from other people's perceptions and ideals. But it is precisely this shock, this sense of losing your identity, that becomes your greatest point of growth. Now that you know your thoughts might be someone else's, you can begin to consciously choose which thoughts to energize and which ones to let go. You start to distinguish your true, inner voice, that quiet whisper of intuition that was always inside, but was drowned out by the endless mental noise. This process is not instantaneous. It requires persistence and constant practice. But with each time you let go of someone else's thought and make a choice based on your true essence, you restore the stolen fragments of your mind. You stop being a puppet and begin to consciously create your own reality, using your mind as a powerful tool, not as a prison for your consciousness. Your emotions, this seemingly natural and spontaneous flow of feelings, are in reality carefully embedded triggers in your system, designed to manipulate your will. You believe you feel sad because something bad has happened, or happy because something good has happened. But in truth, your emotional body has become the perfect prison because its walls are invisible and its locks are impervious to logic. The feeling of guilt, fear, anxiety, or hopelessness does not arise from nowhere. It is activated in your system whenever the system needs to weaken your will, to make you obedient and predictable. You might suddenly feel an inexplicable heaviness in your soul, a flash of anger without an obvious reason, or an inner emptiness that is not connected to current events. And this is always someone else's work, a subtle program launched from the outside. The emotional body is the most effective tool for enslavement because it acts faster and deeper than thoughts. The mind might still have time to ask a question, but the emotion has already captured you completely, depriving you of the ability for sound judgment and resistance. You become a victim of your own internal state, allowing it to dictate your actions and life decisions. As long as you do not learn to observe your feelings like passing clouds in the sky, you will remain a prisoner of this artificially created emotional storm. When you first realize that your emotions are not your own, something inside you breaks irreversibly, destroying the usual order of things. It is a painful and frightening moment as you face a feeling of emptiness and loss of self. However, it is precisely this breakthrough, this destruction of the emotional prison, that opens the door to your true liberation. When you stop identifying with every emotion that arises within you, you gain power over them. You learn not to suppress feelings, but to observe them without judgment, allowing them to pass through you freely, without lingering. This does not mean that you become heartless or unfeeling. On the contrary, you begin to experience genuine, pure emotions that are born from the depths of your soul, not from external programming. You discover that joy can be quiet and deep, not loud and fleeting. And it is in this inner silence, after being freed from foreign emotional control, that you begin to hear your true voice, which becomes a compass on your path to freedom. Your life energy, this pure, vibrant force, is the most valuable resource you have ever had. And it is precisely this that is being taken from you unnoticed, day after day. You believe that energy is simply a consequence of food, sleep, or entertainment, but in reality, these are just temporary crutches that restore depleted reserves for a short time. Every day when you feel drained, suffer from apathy, or experience an inner emptiness, someone is directly benefiting from it. The energy you lose, like a thin, invisible stream, leaks away and feeds the vast structures built on your unconsciousness and ignorance. The control systems know perfectly well that as long as you do not control your inner flow of power, you remain safe, predictable, and easily manageable. They provide you with the illusion of freedom, and in return, they receive your life force, which becomes the foundation for their own existence. You've been taught to believe that true energy replenishment can only be found in the outside world, in the approval of others, in material achievements, in new sensations. But this is just another layer of deception that distracts you from the only real source of power. The true source of your life energy has always been within you, in the very depths of your being, but you were never taught how to access it. It was hidden behind a veil of your thoughts, fears, and false desires that took all your strength, leaving nothing for your true growth. You constantly fed other egregores, other people's ideas, and other people's dreams, while your own life slowly withered. This realization can be shocking, but it is necessary for your awakening. When you finally begin to understand that you are the source and not just the consumer of energy, the game changes dramatically. You realize that you don't just exist. You radiate vibrations that are capable of shaping your reality. As soon as you begin to consciously manage your internal flow, directing it towards your true goals and dreams, and not someone else's, the whole system begins to crack at the seams. You cease to be a donor for those who feed on your fear and pain. You become an independent, self-sufficient, energetic entity. This moment is not just a return of power, it is the return of your true, sovereign self. It is here that the real process of creation begins, when you consciously become the architect of your own destiny, and not a passive participant in someone else's script. Everything you see around you, from news headlines to billboards, from traffic rules to religious dogmas, is part of a carefully constructed simulation, a grand stage set. Schools, religions, governments, media corporations, they are not separate institutions, but links in one huge chain, whose sole purpose is to keep you in obedience. You are offered illusory comfort, endless entertainment, and short-term pleasures, so that you never want to ask unnecessary questions about the meaning of your existence. You live in a cage that has no visible bars, and it is this invisibility that makes it a perfect and impenetrable prison. Every time you intuitively feel the desire to go beyond the usual boundaries, the system instantly activates a sense of fear and doubt within you, like an invisible guard returning you to your assigned place. But at some point, after a long stay in this matrix, you begin to notice glitches in the program. These might be illogical coincidences that make you question the nature of chance. It might be a deep, inexplicable emptiness inside that arises even during moments of a successful and normal life. This feeling of dissonance, this inner voice whispering that something is not right, becomes the first and most reliable signal that reality is not what it seems. This is the moment when your soul begins to rebel against the role that has been imposed upon it. You stop being a passive spectator and begin to consciously seek answers to questions you never even dared to ask yourself before. With each new realization, you disconnect one of the invisible threads that held you in this system. This is not just information you are receiving. It is a transformation of your perception at a cellular level. You begin to see the world not through the prism of the beliefs imposed on you, but as it truly is, with all its artificial constructs and hidden mechanisms. The grand deception ceases to be your reality and becomes just a backdrop on which you can now freely create. This is a journey in which you slowly but surely shed all the masks and layers of lies to finally see your authentic face, your true, sovereign nature. Those who first begin to realize the scale of this all-encompassing deception almost always go through a period of profound internal chaos. This is not just an inconvenience, but a real existential crisis when thoughts begin to crumble like old, dilapidated walls. Emotions become unpredictable, their amplitude swinging from euphoria to despair, and it seems that you have lost control over your inner world. Energy rushes chaotically, either giving a sudden surge of strength or plunging you into a state of complete apathy and powerlessness. At this moment, the control system, realizing that it is losing you, tries with all its might to pull you back into the matrix. It uses its tools, embedded deep in your subconscious, and makes you label this process a crisis, depression, or even madness. It whispers to you that you are losing your mind, that you need to return to normal life and forget everything you have realized. You begin to feel that you no longer fit into the script that was written for you. The role you have played for so long and so convincingly no longer suits you. You look at the people around you, see how they continue to follow their programmed routes, and feel like a stranger among them. This is painful because not only your external world, but also everything you considered your personality is collapsing. It's like an artist erasing their own portrait to start painting anew. But it is precisely this chaos that is the most reliable and convincing confirmation that the program inside you is breaking. You are no longer a puppet. You do not react to the old triggers, and this causes a system failure. Those who reach this stage and do not retreat in the face of fear and pressure will never be the same again, no matter how hard they try. They have passed the point of no return. They have accepted their chaos as a necessary stage of purification and not as a sign of illness. They understand that this internal breakdown is the harbinger of a new, true creation. In the place of destroyed beliefs and false emotions, a clean, unfilled space appears, which you can now fill yourself with your own will, your own thoughts, and your own authentic energy. This is the most difficult and most important battle you will ever fight, the battle for your true essence. And victory in it gives you not just freedom, but a new, completely different quality of being. There is a hidden point of power that is never openly spoken of in so-called official sources. This is the fifth body, not a physical object, not a mental construct, and not an emotional outburst. It is the integration of all four of your bodies into a single, harmonious whole. It is a state of complete and absolute wholeness. It has nothing in common with what they tried to instill in you under the guise of religion, magic, or mysticism, as it is not an external practice, but an internal state of being. Its activation does not happen through rituals, but through deep, all-encompassing awareness. When this occurs, your perception of reality changes so fundamentally that the entire game becomes transparent to you. you begin to see the hidden mechanisms of manipulation, to notice exactly how other people are programmed, how patterns of thoughts and emotions, which you once considered your own, are triggered. This process is like suddenly gaining access to the source code of reality. You stop being a passive participant and start seeing all the connections, all the causes and effects. You see how the fears and desires of other people are used to control them, how their energy leaks away, and how they voluntarily give up their freedom for illusory benefits. Those who have gone through this stage and activated their fifth body never return to their old life because it is now nothing more than a transparent backdrop for them. They can continue to live in this world, but they no longer belong to it. Their thoughts, their emotions, and their energy are no longer part of this system. Their will becomes truly free and uncontrollable. This is precisely why this knowledge has been hidden for centuries, because a free person who has realized and activated their true potential becomes dangerous to any control system. Such a person is not susceptible to fear. It is impossible to intimidate them or force them to do something against their will. They do not seek approval, do not chase false ideals, and do not need entertainment to fill an inner emptiness. They are a living example that liberation is possible for anyone who dares to walk this path, and their very existence becomes a challenge to the entire matrix, for they show that true freedom is not a myth, but an attainable reality. True liberation is not just a beautiful metaphor or an inspiring idea. It is a genuine, irreversible act of inner rebellion that you yourself commit when you make the decision to break all ties with the imposed reality. The alignment of all your bodies, physical, mental, emotional, and energetic, does not just destroy the illusion. It completely deprives the system of its power over you. But this final step requires incredible courage because it is irreversible. Once you pass this point of no return, you can no longer go back to your old life, your old way of thinking, and your old reactions. The one who has gone through this process will never again be convenient for society because they cease to be predictable. Their behavior is no longer subject to templates, and their decisions come from the depths of their true essence, not from external triggers. You begin to see the game, to understand its rules, but you no longer obey them. This does not mean that you have to leave the world, become a hermit, or live in isolation. On the contrary, you continue to live among people, interact with them, and fulfill your social functions. But your inner connection to the matrix is completely severed. You live in the world, but you no longer belong to it. You are like an observer who is in the center of events, but their inner state remains unshakable, free from external influences. You know that your choices, your thoughts, and your energy are now completely your own. And this knowledge gives you a sense of peace and strength you could never have dreamed of before. The choice is now yours alone. You can take a step into this unknown, go through pain, fear, and chaos to gain true, authentic freedom. Or you can remain a prisoner of a beautiful but empty lie, continuing to play a role written for you by others. The path to freedom is not easy, but the reward is your own sovereign existence, where you become the sole creator of your reality. Remember that even one person who has truly realized their freedom can become a beacon for others.